is it that you as a salesperson have to practice and role play? The answer may surprise you. I'm Scott Silverman. I'm coming to you live from Sacramento, California on a perfect day to talk about sales and a perfect day to talk about you. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button. Now, as a salesperson, you have to perfect your craft. And one of the things that'll happen is a company will either A, hire me, or a salesperson will hire me and say, hey, I need a ride along. I need you to come see what I'm doing. And I want to know what I'm doing right, and I want to know what I'm doing wrong. And what will happen is at some point the conversation comes up, and I'll say, hey, salesperson, how often are you role playing? And sometimes people look at me and they're like, why would I do that? I'm like, because if you're not practicing in the office, if you're not practicing on your own time, you're practicing on your clients, and it's costing you a lot of money. And salespeople will say, hey, I never really thought of it that way. And business owners will hire me and I'll explain the same thing. Hey, look, real deal, if you're not practicing outside of a sales presentation and you're only practicing with your clients, it's very costly. Now, here's the other thing that nobody ever talks about. Bad sales presentations aren't just bad for you, they're bad for the client too. I don't know about you, but I've sat through some bad sales presentations in my lifetime. I have watched salespeople think that they're giving a fantastic presentation, and at the end of the day, they are not good at what they do. And so, you know me, I train salespeople. I'm like, hey, how often do you practice? And I'm like, what? I don't. So if you were looking for like a super secret tip on how to get better in sales, it's not super secret. It's you got to practice, you got to role play. And you'll find that the top salespeople understand that the more times that they go through their presentation, the more times that they have mastery of their content, the easier it is for them to present. And if you're a brand new salesperson, if you're a struggling salesperson, the greatest fear that you have is, I'm going to look dumb. I'm going to look silly. But I would rather look dumb and silly in an office than dumb and silly in front of a buyer, because that's just super costly. Now, the cool thing about being in role play and the cool thing about practicing is it does help you build confidence. And content in the world of sales helps you build confidence. And one of the things I'll find is I'll ride with salespeople. I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, all right, buyer gives you an objection. What do? And the salesperson, they're looking at the buyer, and because they don't have content and they don't know what they're going to say and what they're going to do, they stumble through objections. Okay? So through an entire sales presentation, salesperson is good. We can talk back and forth. We can have a conversation. And then all of a sudden, a little bit of stress happens, and it's a case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Good salesperson, good presentation, stumble at the end. And you know what? People go, aha, that's a fraud. If you ever read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, Blink, there's an excerpt in there where a guy or a docent of a museum bought a statue. And through all the due diligence, everything looked A1 good on paper. And then the statue showed up, and what happened was the people from the museum walked around and they're like, something's wrong. No, it just doesn't add up. And what it was the crack was in the wrong spot. It was marble. The crack was in the wrong spot because people had been around the statues and they'd been around art for a long time. They figured out it was a fraud, but they couldn't figure out exactly why until they all started having a conversation. Your buyer does the same thing. They go, conversation for the whole entire sales process felt real, felt good. And then you get to the tough part where there's an objection and you stumbled. So it was like for 90% of the presentation, fantastic, A+. But the point where you needed to be a pro and the point where you needed to have the conversation and not freak out was the point where you lost them. And I want you to really think about that, because I've sat through a ton of presentations. I have sat through a ton of role plays. I have done a ton of role plays. I've done a ton of presentations. And the common thread is top salespeople role play because when they get into trouble, they need that content. They need it to be second nature. Now, a script can go a lot of different ways. A script can be an outline that you can swipe and say, I'm going to put my words to it. I'm going to use my word tracks to build some confidence. A script could be like, I'm going to follow what somebody tells me word for word if I'm brand new to sales or if I'm struggling. It's a base point. It's a routine. So if you watch people who do like Taekwondo and karate, they got a form. And that's how they start with like, this is what you do, this is what you say, and this is how you interact. That's part of what role play does for you. There you go. I really want to help you out. I want to see you be good at sales. I want to see you close some deals, but if you're not role playing, you're not practicing, you're practicing on your clients. Very costly, not good. You got one thing to do from here. It's one thing. Find the subscribe button, click on it, and every time I send out a video, you'll get an update. So Scott Bell Consultant sent out another fantastic video, probably from a cool location, Today I'm in Sacramento, California. We'll see you soon. Thanks for dropping by. Aloha.